Getting a response from a potential client is exciting, but the next step, which is an interview, is what is going to determine whether you get them as client or not. In this video, I'm going to share with you some important tips that you can implement, be ready, and crush your virtual assistant interview. Hello, my name is Sadiq Umar. I'm a full-time freelancer living in Nigeria, and this video is going to be based on my personal experience of starting freelancing and becoming a full-time freelancer. The very first thing that you need to do is get your hardware and your software ready for the interview. And what I mean is, make sure your computer is fully charged. And depending on where the client wants to interview you, if they are going to use Zoom or Microsoft Teams or Skype, whatever the client wants to use, make sure you install it on your computer and you get it ready. If you are going to use Zoom, then make sure Zoom is updated, because sometimes when you want to join a meeting, at the last minute, Zoom is going to ask you to update the application, and you don't want to be late for your virtual assistant interview. So whatever software you are going to use for the meeting, make sure the software is installed and ready to go on your computer. Okay, the next thing after you have the software ready on your computer is test microphone. If you want to just use your earpiece, then do a test meeting and record it to test the microphone to make sure the microphone is working. That is especially if you are not used to doing meetings on Zoom or Microsoft Teams or Skype, because sometimes you will join a meeting and you might choose a wrong microphone, or the one that you intend to use is not working, and the client will end up not hearing you. So check your microphone, the microphone that you are going to use for the meeting, and make sure everything is ready to go. The next important thing is prepare the place that you are going to do the interview. In order to be professional, you don't have to have a nice office background when you do your interview. What you just need is you need a quiet place. You can just do your interview with a plain wall background, but make sure wherever you are doing the interview is absolutely quiet and silent, because that is going to make you look more professional and ready to do the job. If you are going to have trouble finding a nice and quiet place, then consider doing your interview at night, because most of the clients that you are going to work with, if you are in Nigeria, most of the clients you are going to work with are going to be in US, UK, and foreign countries. So based on their clock, you can adjust so that the interview time will be at a night time where you live, so that it will be absolutely quiet. Even if the place is normally noisy, at night it will be quiet. So make sure you prefer a nice and quiet place to do your interview. Okay, when you have your computer ready, you have your microphone, you have the nice place, the quiet place to do your interview, the next thing is prepare some answers. Have some answers ready so that when the client asks you, you won't have to think about it. You can just give them their answer. And some of the general questions that the virtual assistant client are going to ask you is, tell me about yourself, and something along these lines. And when a potential client asks you this question, what they are looking to hear from you is how you become a virtual assistant, and your previous experience before you start virtual assistants, and your experience being a virtual assistant. So if you are completely new to virtual assistant, then you don't have much to share about your experience with being a virtual assistant. What you should do is just prepare some answers based on your general experience. You can just share with them your educational background and how you come across virtual assistants and how you start virtual assistants. If you have ever done any freelance work before, then you can just include it in your answer. What they are just looking to hear from you is how you start your virtual assistant, how you become a virtual assistant, in order for them to know your motivation and your experience of doing a virtual assistant work. And this is why the next tip is very important, and which is know what the client is looking for. When a client is looking for a virtual assistant, they are looking for something. Some clients are looking for someone that they can give some time-consuming tasks so that they can focus on doing something else. And some clients are looking for an expert in a specific field. And some clients are just looking for a beginner virtual assistant who is ready to learn. So know what the client is looking for in order to respond to their questions accordingly. And you can easily know what the client is looking for if you check the job description they provided carefully and you understand the job description. If the client mentioned that they are looking for someone who is proficient in using Canva, Photoshop, Adobe Premiere Pro. They listed all of the softwares that they are looking for someone who is proficient in all of the softwares, and you have experience with maybe 3 of the softwares, you don't have any experience with 2 of the softwares they mentioned. Then when they ask you about it, you can just tell them your experience with the softwares that you have experience with, and the ones that you don't have experience with, you can just tell them you haven't used these softwares previously, but you are willing to learn how to use it to improve your knowledge. And this is why it's important you read and understand the job description from the beginning, because if you read and understand the job description, you will know the software they are looking for someone who is proficient in. And even if you have never used those softwares before the interview, you can just do a search on YouTube and Google and learn a little about the software, so that it will be easier for you to answer their questions when they ask you. This way, even if you don't have any experience with software, you can respond with, I haven't completed any project with this software, but I am familiar with how it works. Okay, the next step is try as much as possible to relax. If it is your first interview, you might get anxious, and if you get anxious, you get worked off, then you might even forget what you want to say to the client, and you will appear unprofessional. So try as much as possible, take a few deep breaths before your interview, and respond to their questions as best as you could. And keep this in mind, nobody knows everything, so whoever they are doing the interview with is probably not going to know everything they are looking for. So don't be afraid to say, I don't know this, if they ask you something you don't know. Just be relaxed and answer their question in a relaxed and direct way. And another general question that most of the virtual assistant clients are going to ask you at the end of the interview is, do you have any question for me? And this is not something that you have to find a question to ask them. You can ask questions like, when do you want to start this project? When are we going to start work? When is this project supposed to start? And or something like, when can I expect to hear back from you? But just keep in mind that you don't have to ask a question. If you have any question related to the job, then that will be your opportunity to ask them. If you don't have any question, you can just ask a general question like, when will this project start? Or when will I expect to hear back from you? Those are some of the general questions that you can ask, and even if you didn't ask them any question, that's okay also. And this next step is important. It is going to help you find your next client. If the potential client notify you that they choose to work with another virtual assistant, then ask for their feedback. Ask them what you did right and what you could improve based on their opinion, and generally they will provide you some feedback, and you can use that feedback and improve for your next interview. And you can also sit down yourself and analyze and evaluate the process from the beginning, where you respond to their job offer, from the time you communicate with them and book the interview, and after the interview, and evaluate to figure out what you did right and what you can improve, so that it will be easier for you to find your next client. So those are my top virtual assistant interview tips for beginners. If you find this video helpful, please give it a like. Also, don't forget to subscribe to this channel, and I will see you in the next video.